The year had barely begun, and yet somehow Logan Paul was already back in a place that felt very familiar. Not because something new had happened, but because something old had finally caught up. Situations like this rarely appear out of thin air, and this one was no different.
I know what you're thinking, this is stupid, right? You're paying $250,000 for a piece of cardboard, and you're right. But Pokemon is blowing up. I have no doubt in my mind this card will be worth $1 million between 2 and 3 years from now.
What most people were reacting to in the present was really the final chapter of a story that started years earlier, quietly, when the internet was paying attention to something else. To understand why so many people are once again questioning Logan Paul's character, intentions, and credibility, you have to slow everything down and rewind to the moment when this all still looked harmless, reasonable, and in some ways even smart. Back in 2022, Logan Paul began publicly leaning into the world of Pokemon trading cards. At the time, this shift seemed almost refreshing. After years of controversy tied to NFTs, crypto projects, and the now infamous Crypto Zoo situation, Logan appeared to be moving away from purely digital hype and towards something tangible. Physical assets, real items, collectibles that existed in the real world. For many people watching from the outside, it looked like a calculated pivot away from speculative digital promises and towards something with a long-standing collector culture. Pokemon cards had been around for decades. They had history, they had nostalgia, and more importantly, they had a proven market. Of course, not everyone took this seriously at first. The idea of spending hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars on what many still saw as pieces of cardboard felt ridiculous to the average person. But the reality was that Pokemon cards were exploding in value. Rare cards, especially high-grade ones, were selling for numbers that rivaled fine art and luxury watches. Logan Paul was not wrong when he said that certain cards would be worth significantly more in the future.
You can just buy a token on Liquid Marketplace to own high-value, top-tier assets that you cannot get anywhere else, right? Like, these are the best assets in the world.
That part of the story is important to acknowledge because it shows that not every move he made during this period was irrational or deceptive on the surface. In fact, in isolation, his interest in Pokemon cards could be seen as a savvy investment decision. This shift also came at a very specific time. The NFT market was collapsing. Countless projects that had once promised revolutionary technology were leaving investors with nothing but worthless JPEGs. Crypto Zoo, a project Logan had heavily promoted, was already being discussed as a massive failure, complete with lawsuits and accusations that ordinary people had been misled. The writing was on the wall. Digital speculation had burned too many bridges. Against that backdrop, moving into tangible collectibles looked less like a gamble and more like damage control. Logan himself even spoke about wanting to invest in real assets, things you could physically hold, store, and insure. From that perspective, Pokemon cards were almost the perfect rebrand. Logan did not just casually collect these cards, he went all in. He spent millions acquiring Charizards, sealed boxes, and rare items that most collectors could only dream of owning.
I'll keep harping on it. Stop making fun of NFTs. People like, yo, it is important technology, and I think it's will become more and more prominent in our everyday
That's also
lives.
just one part of NFTs.
One part.
There's so much about it.
Agree.
It's amazing.
He showcased these purchases publicly, reinforcing the idea that he was serious about the space. For a while, it worked. The conversation around Logan shifted slightly. Instead of crypto scams and NFT disasters, people were talking about grading, rarity, and auction values. The tone changed, and that change is critical to understanding why what came next was able to gain as much traction as it did. This is where Liquid Marketplace enters the picture. On paper, Liquid Marketplace was positioned as an innovative platform that aimed to democratize access to high-value collectibles.
Marketplace uses tokens as a way to buy, sell, and trade ownership of a physical item on blockchain. These specific tokens issue smart contracts, which represent co-ownership in the underlying asset. Tokenization is what allows us to fractionalize and digitize the ownership of physical assets. We authenticate the asset and appraise it. The appraisal price is how we determine the number of tokens the asset will be split into. The total number of tokens is equal to the value of that asset.
The concept was simple enough to sound appealing. Instead of needing millions of dollars to buy a rare trading card or piece of memorabilia, users could buy fractional ownership through blockchain-based tokens. These tokens would represent partial ownership of a physical asset stored securely in a vault. The platform claimed to authenticate and appraise each item, then split its value into tokens that users could buy, sell, and trade.
What's up, y'all? Logan here. As an avid collector and strategic investor myself, I am so stoked
pumped to announce the launch of Liquid Marketplace, a platform where collectors can buy and sell fractions of rare collectibles via tokens on the blockchain. As a co-founder of Liquid Marketplace, I believe we're set to level the playing field by allowing anyone to own a piece of the world's rarest collectibles. Liquid Marketplace will curate a collection of highly sought-after items available in our ecosystem where users can buy in to be a partial owner. We'll keep the collectibles safe in our Liquid Marketplace vault, and when you're ready, you can buy, sell, and trade your portion of ownership with other members.
In theory, this allowed ordinary people to own a piece of history that would otherwise be completely out of reach. The idea did not exist in a vacuum. Fractional ownership was already normalized in other areas.
Go sign up today, build your dream collection, and own a piece of the rarest collectibles in the world on Liquid Marketplace.
Stock trading apps like Robinhood had popularized the concept of owning fractions of expensive shares. The NBA had launched its own digital collectibles platform, NBA Top Shot, where people paid real money for licensed moments tied to historic plays. At its peak, that platform was generating hundreds of millions of dollars in trading volume, with individual moments selling for eye-watering amounts. By the time Liquid Marketplace launched, the idea of virtual or fractional ownership was no longer fringe. People were already comfortable with it, or at least curious enough to try. Logan Paul's involvement was not subtle. He introduced himself publicly as a co-founder of Liquid Marketplace. He appeared in promotional videos. He explained the concept directly to his audience. He framed the platform as a way to level the playing field, allowing anyone to own a piece of the world's rarest collectibles. He showed off some of the platform's flagship assets, including rare Pokémon cards and NBA memorabilia. His presence was not just an endorsement, it was a cornerstone of the brand's credibility. For many users, Logan's name was the reason they felt safe participating. At that time, aside from lingering resentment over past controversies, his reputation had not fully collapsed. To some, the Japan scandal felt distant. To others, it felt unrelated. The Pokémon angle softened his image. One of the most significant assets promoted through Liquid Marketplace was the Pikachu Illustrator card. This card is widely regarded as the holy grail of Pokémon collecting. It represents the origins of the franchise and exists in extremely limited quantities. Logan Paul owned the only copy graded PSA 10, the highest possible grade, making it uniquely valuable.
The rarest, most valuable card in the world. There's only one of them. One in a PSA 10. You see the label up there, meaning it's perfect.
Liquid Marketplace advertised fractional ownership of this exact card, using Logan's likeness repeatedly to drive interest. The messaging emphasized exclusivity, history, and community ownership.
There is one trading card that's the holy grail of the Pokemon game. A card that represents what Pokemon wouldn't be without. The coveted Pikachu Illustrator. This card became one of the most sought-after trading cards ever. Collectors were traveling near and far to get their hands on it. Logan Paul made it his mission to own the only copy of the card that received a PSA 10 rating. Or completed a sale, making it the most expensive card in the world. Co-ownership of this card means that you're not just a partial owner of the world's most expensive trading card, you would own a piece of history. So, avid collectors, Pokemon lovers, people who just want bragging rights, the time is now. This opportunity is once in a lifetime, and we at Liquid Marketplace are offering it.
Instead of one person owning the most expensive Pokémon card in the world, the platform suggested that everyone could own it together. At the time, many people bought into this idea. The concept sounded reasonable. The execution looked polished. Logan's involvement added a layer of perceived legitimacy. But even in 2022, skepticism existed, particularly within the trading card community. Some collectors and YouTubers raised concerns almost immediately. One of the most vocal critics was Rattle Pokémon, who questioned the structure of Liquid Marketplace from day one. He pointed out issues in the platform's terms and conditions that gave the company broad power to change rules, limit access, and avoid liability.
The thing of nightmares. We may change or revise any aspect of these terms or the platform from time to time in our sole discretion by posting the revised terms on the platform or electronically sending you the revised terms. We change the rules when we want to. I guess it applies immediately. You acknowledge and agree that the form and nature of the platform and any part of it may change from time to time without prior notice to you, and that we may add new features and change any part of the platform at any time without notice. You agree that we shall not be liable to you or any third party for any modification or termination of the platform or your account. You agree that Liquid Marketplace is not liable for any losses you may incur as a result of or associated with any transaction delays or unavailability.
These were not minor details buried in legal jargon. They were significant red flags that suggested users had very little protection if something went wrong. The platform explicitly stated that it could modify or terminate services without notice. It disclaimed responsibility for losses due to delays or unavailability. In simple terms, users were being asked to trust a system where the rules could change at any time, and the company would not be held accountable. For experienced collectors, this was alarming. For casual users drawn in by Logan's promotion, it was often overlooked. This divide is important. It shows that the warning signs were there, but they were not loud enough to overpower the marketing. In my opinion, this is where the pattern begins to emerge clearly. Logan Paul has a history of attaching himself to projects that sound innovative, promise access or wealth, and rely heavily on trust. In each case, the pitch focuses on opportunity, while the risks are downplayed or ignored. With Liquid Marketplace, the idea itself was not inherently evil or legal. Fractional ownership can work,